Today's episode is sponsored by Thompson Insurance Group. They're committed to helping you manage the risks that arise in everyday life. They want your insurance to work hard for you and your family. Let them help you find the right protection while giving you peace of mind knowing you're covered. That's Thompson Insurance Company, located in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Hey guys, Erica Sacosio here with Practical BizZ podcast. And if you are from Warwick, Rhode Island, or most of Rhode Island, my guest will need no introduction. But today we wanted to talk about the importance of working with your local small newspaper and the value that it still brings to small businesses and communities. I am joined with John Howell today from the Warwick Beacon and multiple other papers that he will share with us during the podcast. But I'm going to give him a minute to talk a little bit about himself. He is certainly a legend in the Warwick community and journalism. So welcome to our show.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I don't know about the legends.
You are a legend.
But I'm going to try to live up to the legend anyway. And, when we were talking before the broadcast here, indicated that actually I've been in Warwick now for 52 years. I started the company with Tony Rattaco. The two of us were actually working at the East Providence Post. He was selling advertising, and I was handling the editorial side of things. I quickly learned in a weekly newspaper, as you know from small businesses, there's nothing that's sort of off the table. So when somebody didn't get their paper, you ran out and you delivered it.
Yeah.
When somebody walked in and wanted to place a classified ad, you didn't call the ad department because you were there.
Yeah.
And you did that. By the same token, when there was a fire, you raced out to do that. And I can remember very well because I lived in Riverside at the time when Crescent Park, the Alhambra burned.
Mm-hmm.
That was in 68, I believe. And my house wasn't all that far away, and these burning embers were coming down. And my wife was saying to me, these things are going to catch on the roof. We're going to burn. I said, I got to get up there and get pictures of this. And I got to see what the heck is happening. So she was left with the hose, and I ran up the street, up to Crescent Park to watch absolutely spectacular fires. Fortunate nobody was really injured in that event. But sort of fast forward from there, Tony, who was selling the advertising, lived in East Greenwich, learned that the Beacon was for sale, and said to me, what if we do this ourselves? And I said, we're doing it right now. So we're doing it for somebody else.
I love it.
Yeah.
So your paper is a small business. Yeah.
It absolutely is.
Absolutely, yeah.
But then we needed money to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And where do you find that? Because the banks look at you and say, what are your assets? What are you going to put up as collateral?
Sure.
Well, I had a car.
I got a typewriter and a camera.
And a camera.
Yeah.
And I had a
humble beginnings.
Not even a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to put her up. So, so I thought, why couldn't we raise the money through the sale of stock?
Okay.
And that's what we did. We needed to raise $40,000, which in today's standards doesn't sound like an awful lot.
Sure.
But back then,
That's a lot.
was a big hill to climb.
Sure.
So I put together what they call a prospectus. Had no clue as to what I was really doing, but
sure. As most small business owners don't when we're first starting, right? That's one of the things here at Stellar Business Concepts. I often talk to people and I'm like, do you have a business plan? Well, no. You've been in business 2 years. We need to go back and give you a solid plan, because if you want to grow, you need to know what direction you're going into.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So anyway, we put the prospectus together. One of the concerns, and maybe you're running into this with some of the people you're working with, is if you're selling stock and you can't buy a majority of the stock, they own the business. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
So what we came up with was a stock debenture plan. And fortunately, my father was in banking and had a few ideas.
Sure.
This was
that's some
one
good guidance. Yeah.
some guidance there. The debenture paid 8%. So if you invested, and we set a minimum of investment because we didn't want scores of investors.
Sure.
So we said 5,000 is, the minimum you can put in. And obviously we were looking for more if it was available. But of that 5,000, 2,500 would be debentures and 2,500 would be stock. And people looked at it and said, well, I can put my money in the bank and get 4%.
Right.
So why am I going to put it with you? What do you guarantees do you offer? We didn't have any. But this concept of debenture, we said, if we're going to borrow the money, it would cost us more than 4%. So what if we pay 8% on the debentures and nothing on the stock, but make the stock convertible make the debentures convertible into stock if the company takes off. So now they've got the option of hopping on the bandwagon if you're really
You made it attractive. You made an attractive offer.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that was a creative way to get financing.
It was.
Yeah. And it worked.
It took
it worked.
It took 1 week.
There you go. Yeah.
And total strangers, which absolutely amazed me.
Well, that's usually who I find supports you the most.
Right. But it all comes down to believing in you because you believe in what you're doing.
100%.
And that's the key. And
if there is a will, there is a way.
Right.
So one of the things that you said the date of 1968. So you said that so easily and like as though it's nothing. So I would say it's fair to say you are an expert in the field of local business and local newspapers. I would say that would be a fair statement to say you're an expert.
Well, I can say I'm a survivor. I don't know if I can say I'm an expert.
Well, seeing that we're in 2023, I'm going to go with you're an expert.
Well, thank you. Right.
So there's been some changes in the way that everybody is doing business. And so, people will throw out these things. I even hear, newspaper is dead, or even Facebook. Oh, Facebook's no good anymore. It's this app, that app. We go through cycles on what people think is the hottest thing. I'm going to say that before there was social, there was local. And for me, my business, Family Tree, we started 17 years ago. And even before that, when I was working for someone else, we have had so many interactions together. But just as a business owner, before there was social media, built my entire company through using was the only place I advertised, your one newspaper.
That's terrific.
And so I found such a great value in it, not just the advertising though, because you were so supportive in writing articles, anything that was going on in our school. We did a fundraiser for, I don't even remember, we did Pennies from Heaven, where the kids all picked their different charities they wanted, and each group collected money, and you guys wrote about that. And so that wasn't advertising at all. It was really just us giving back, showing how we give back to our community.
But that's the value, I think, of papers or local papers.
Yeah.
Is that you're sort of glue for the community. Because what you're talking about, the pennies, from my perspective, from wearing the news hat, not the advertising hat, that's of interest to your neighbors, obviously to the parents of the kids that go here.
Yeah.
So they get that, notoriety, confirmation that this is important.
Yeah.
It is important.
Absolutely. I don't know if you notice when you walk down the stairs, I have big picture frames of all of our articles from the Warwick Beacon. So when we walk out, I'm going to show you. Literally, we have huge framed boards of all of our articles from the Beacon. So I think also when you look at advertising in general, in terms of the cost, putting social media aside, print advertising or marketing through other mediums is much more expensive than it would be with your local paper. And I think for most mom and pop businesses, unless you're doing a lot of online sales and you're selling outside of your zip code, most small mom and pops, restaurants, childcare centers, hairdressers, most of our businesses coming within our 5 to 15, depending on, we're in Rhode Island, so 5 to 20 mile radius of where your shop is.
That's true.
So if you're ever looking for something that is super niche, super concentrated, right? Because social media, people from other countries could be watching you. They're not your customer. My customer is the person who lives 3 streets over, or the lady who works at the bank next door, right? So if you're ever, as a business, looking for concentration from your zip code areas, your local paper is really your most cost-effective way to do that.
I can't argue.
I know.
I'm not.
Do you have anything you'd like to add to that statement, or just case studies or scenarios, or anything you want to add to that?
I think there's not such a thing as the silver bullet in business, and a lot of people, I think, are sort of misled by that. They think, okay, I get to this stage, everything's going to be fine. It's going to work from there, and there isn't. And I think the same is true with advertising. As much as we're promoting advertising in the Beacon and in our local papers, it's a mix of things that work.
Yes.
And you can't ignore what the rest of the world is doing.
Yeah.
And right now, a lot of it is on social media. It's that form of communication.
Yeah.
And so my advice is really to build, and this is much more directed, I think, at, sales reps, is to build relationships where you understand what they're trying to achieve, and you put together a program that works for them.
Yeah.
That includes, yes, some print, but also says, be realistic.
Sure.
You
want to do a combination of things for sure. Right. I think I guess the value that I see in the print part is, well, one, it's not noisy there, right? When you open up your newspaper, there's not 19 other distractions coming at you, right? You're reading an article, right? And you're 100% of your attention's in that article, right? So I think with social media, although certainly part of anybody's marketing plan, it shouldn't be all there. Right. And what I'm saying is that your local communities are in your local paper. So my primary business is childcare, and a lot of schools post things in the newspaper, right? The report cards and the honor roll and all those things. So I know my customers are in those papers. Not only are they in the papers, they're cutting them out, they're framing them, all of those things.
The refrigerators become...
The refrigerator is my...
the album.
Yeah, the kid in the soccer team or the baseball team,
right?
All those things. So I know that my customer is in that paper. Yeah, sure, they're on social media, but they're on that paper because you're not cutting and pasting a social media post. You're not printing that out, hanging it on your fridge, but you are, an article from your local paper. So I think, the customer's retention is there a little bit longer. I think that's why the business spotlight always did so well, and why so many businesses were interested in that, because not only did you have your business card, oh, that was great, but you couldn't wait for that, that 1 week in that 8-week period that your spotlight was there, and, it was all about the owner and the business, and,
you get to tell your story.
Yeah, you get to tell your story. So I thought that was great. Can you share maybe a little bit about why local businesses should reach out to their local paper?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, you take a look at some of the online businesses that people have started, and it's simple enough for them to, take a look down their list of customers and say, well, I've only got 2 from Rhode Island because I'm selling this whatever exotic stuff is, and that's all over the country.
Yep.
I wouldn't necessarily say, come advertise in the Beacon and get a 3rd customer.
Yep.
Which they may need.
Yep. But you might, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm going to.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, respectfully. But you might, if you're producing that product in Warwick and you're created this business in Warwick, you may want to let everyone know. So maybe it wouldn't be an ad, but maybe it may be a different way that you're letting people in your local area know what you're doing. Right? Like even this podcast, it's women owned, women run. It's, it comes out of Warwick. Probably will even add something or some type of press release, send it to the paper for local businesses in our area to come on our show. It doesn't cost them anything. It's free advertising, free promotion. It gives them an opportunity to tell their story. And we do shorts and digital pieces that they can put up on their reels, etc.
Right.
So essentially kind of like what you do in print, we do it a little bit differently, but you still want to tell that story to your local community. Like, this is what I'm contributing to my local community outside of the sales part. Yeah. So I think that is of value as well.
But if they're dependent, quite obviously, on, as you pointed out, the radius of customers around them, that's one thing that we can certainly do, because not only do we have the Beacon, but we're publishing the Cranston Herald in Cranston. We do as well the Johnston Sunrise, which is a free publication. And then we have the Reminder in Coventry, been there more than 60 years.
Wow, yeah.
And we spend, on an average, more than $4,000 a week mailing that directly to more than 20,000 homes in Coventry and West Warwick.
Yeah.
And looking at that publication is really a throwback to what papers used to be, because you go through it and you see these classified ads, you see these 1 and 2 inch ads from small businesses.
Yep.
And people look at that paper. In fact, they call it their newspaper.
Yeah.
And it always,
there's some pride around it because it's your community, right? Just like that's my football team.
Exactly.
That's my, there is a very personal relationship connection to the place around the corner, right? Some of us go to Dunkin' Donuts and some of us go to West Shore Coffee Shop. Right, D?
I had that there.
But we make those decisions every day, right? And this is no different, right? Doesn't mean every day you go to Dunkin'. Maybe once in a while you're going to a different place, But I also think smart people read. I know for a fact smart people read, and so when you look at pictures of the highest grossing earners, they're got their Forbes magazine. They're reading. They're still reading. And so people at the top of their game are readers. And I think that, that's a great way to get information about what's going on.
Right.
New businesses that are opening,
right.
New community centers that are opening, whatever's going on in the community. I think, that's a great way to gather. And you guys also have online paper.
Yes.
Right. So if you're not into that, that kind of paper, you get your news online too. Right.
And we do. And you've probably seen it, we have an e-edition of the paper as well as a website. So, you can go on the website, you can research articles going back to 2000.
Yeah.
So we've got 23 years of history. Let's say you're trying to find an event that took place.
Oh, yeah.
15 years ago. Yeah, you can find it on that.
Sure. Yeah.
But the e-edition gives you a paper online that you can turn page by page, just as you would a regular paper, and focus on what you want.
And another aspect, if you're really great at writing, so if a business owner is really great at writing, maybe they can write a how-to article or something that they could submit to the paper. And sometimes if there's not stories, there's space for that. Obviously, I've been in the field of childcare for 25 years. I could easily write a very short article on how to pick the best summer camp for your child. So those are other ways that people could possibly connect with their local paper and show themselves as an authority. Whether that's a paid spot, a not paid spot, doesn't matter. It's a great way to show yourself as an expert in the field.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because, these are local routes, and we're feeding off of, the feeding is maybe not, we're taking in
Yeah.
what's being given to us on a local level.
Yeah.
And that's what people are looking for.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's why they do the smaller niche type of paper.
right. But I mean, they know the person who's making the recommendation.
Yeah.
If it's, where to send your kids to camp
Mhm.
by Erica.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
you
It's
know.
going to be our next article.
It should be.
Or even coupons. Like if you own a diner and you want to do some type of a special or a coupon, or if you have a grand opening, what better place than say, hey, Light and Grace just opened up their new health and wellness spa. Their ribbon cutting is on such and such a day. That is important information that people in your zip code need to know, right? Yeah.
Now, one of the things that we do, and I don't think many organizations as there could be are aware of it, we do a thing called Beacon BizZ in every edition of the paper. So if events are coming up,
Yep.
and it could be, the Girl Scout troop, whatever is going to be going door to door selling cookies, and this is going to happen in Norwood,
Yep.
we want to know about it and include it in that section of the paper. There's no cost involved for them to do that. And if you look through that, it's a real mix of
Yeah.
events and things that are going on locally.
So those of you in Warwick who own a business, if you have an event going on, make sure you send your info over to John. We actually used that for an event we had. We had a holiday artisan show, and we used that feature. And we had about 500 people show up at that event throughout the day. And we asked people at the door how they heard about us, and many people said they heard about us through the Beacon.
Wow.
So, again, it was right on Sandy Lane, super niche, super,
Super local.
yeah, super local. So people came out with their kids. Lots of, older folks came out too, which was great because it was a holiday bazaar. But yeah, so I think it still works. So is there any piece of advice before we wrap up, any piece of advice you would like to offer to the small business community? It doesn't have to be in work. It could just be all over. We actually have people from Germany that listen to our show, Spain, Ireland. It's, podcasts are just the coolest things ever. But if you could, with your many years of experience, maybe one piece or two pieces of advice, whether it's marketing, whether it's about just getting your message out, what would it be?
I think it's being involved in your community and looking beyond just what you're looking. Yes. Erica made the money. Right there.
Very, very honest. I'm very honest and candid. Beyond making money.
It is.
It's beyond making money. Good businesses are all, like you said, about relationships. And if you expect a community to support you, you have to support them back. And I've lived, by that. I will die on the hill. I believe it's one of my core values very, very strongly here. And it's something that I hope as a business coach, I instill in up and coming entrepreneurs as well. It can't always be take. You've got to give back, in a way that makes sense.
And it comes back to you.
Yes, it does.
So
here we are today.
yes.
So thank you for tuning in to Practical Biz. I'm going to ask you just to give them your little contact information, how somebody would get a hold of you to connect with the Beacon, the Johnston, all of your papers. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I use, a telephone. I'm not that far technically advanced. And let me give you a couple of numbers. They're actually
local numbers, 401 zip code.
You got 401, yeah. Cell phone is 787-0038. And the office number, 732-3100. Texting, I find, is actually a very good way to communicate, and preferable from my standpoint than email. And if you want to come over and see my email, I call it the swamp.
Yeah, I've got 5. I've got an email, the real email, the side email.
Keeping up with that.
Yes.
And as you probably could guess, once you get sort of on these lists, you get blanketed. And if you don't sort of weed through it, you can actually lose good ideas and good stories and stuff. So you got to do it.
Why don't you tell them the website too?
So the website, the easy one to remember, is warwickonline.com.
Okay, that's easy.
So there's the contacts.
Yeah.
And if you've got a good story, it doesn't have to be an ad. I mean, I'd love those, but you've got a good story, be sure to call me. And if it's something that's coming up, this is one thing I think that people tend to ignore, is that you can build attendance to events by getting out the story before it happens.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, oh, we're doing Dancing with the Stars
Tomorrow.
and can you cover it? And I said, well, how many tickets have you sold? Well, we could do, it'd be better off if we could sell 100 more. I'm not going to be able to help you there.
Yeah.
But if you've come to me 3 weeks in advance,
Correct.
we can do a feature story on the whole event, what it means to the community, and help you sell those tickets and make the event successful.
Yeah.
So think ahead, and as you said, plan. Yeah. Business planning is
Business
key.
planning. There we go.
So.
We're going to end on that note. Thank you so much for tuning in to Practical Biz Podcast. Remember to subscribe, like, comment below, and please support your local paper because they are a small business too. See you later. Are you a business owner? Are ready to get your startup? Well, start it. Have a burning question you would like us to answer? Want to know more about the services we offer? Or register for upcoming workshops and events? Looking to book a guest speaker? Or would like to be a guest on the Practical Biz Podcast? Visit our website at stellabusinessconcepts.com.